Peace. What's good, YouTube? Back again with another video. So today I wanted to get into not getting your physicality twisted with your spirituality. And I made a short about this just yesterday, but I'm gonna make a full-length video about this now because I'm starting to notice that it's becoming more of an epidemic with people new into the journey. It was something that I encountered when I was new into my journey, right? And it can be very easy to slip into this. I don't think anyone's above reproach when it comes to this, because we're all trying to get to where we find light in, and that's perfectly fine. But we have to get there without using what got us in the darkness in the first place. And what got us in the darkness was essentially this religious mindset that we have, right? And this religious mindset that we have is that it's not necessarily you'll outwardly worship a god and fear a devil, but your religious mindset is tied into you thinking that you have to be a certain way or do certain things to be closer to your own divinity, but that could be further from the truth, right? Just the other day, I heard someone talking about how veganism or vegetarianism makes them more spiritual. And while I'm a vegetarian myself, right? But I learned to separate that from my spirituality, because in reality, it doesn't bring you any closer. And actually, if you have that mindset, it can actually bring you much further, And the reason why I say that is because what is eating plants really doing for you versus maybe helping your physical health? But that's a physical thing. And sure, you might feel better about doing it, and maybe you might have a certain mindset about doing it. But at the end of the day, if we all know that this is a matrix, or that this is an illusion, if you subscribe to that type of mindset, right? Or it's even referenced, in Hindu mythology, that the world that we live in is an illusion. Then how does eating only vegetables help you with that? You know what I mean? And for many people into ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, and even in the hieroglyphs and in the mythology there, the gods and the goddesses speak about eating fish and drinking beer. So what's the difference? And I'm not trying to talk down on it, because like I said, I'm a vegetarian myself, but I do that for health purposes, because right now that's what's best for me. Whereas when I was eating meat, it wasn't necessarily working out, right? And so what I'm saying is that it's mainly just a lifestyle choice, right? It doesn't necessarily make you any closer to your spiritual mission, your soul mission and all that. It doesn't bring you any closer, but it might help you stay in this world long enough to achieve it without any physical problems, because obviously when you have physical health problems, that can get in the way of your spirituality. But in terms of helping or upping your vibration, that's not necessarily the case. What ups your vibration is your mindset and your dedication to knowledge and growth on your spiritual path. That's what ups your vibration. Even if you have this karmic mindset, that goes back to the same thing, where that belief in that type of karma, where if you participate in the suffering of animals, you think something's going to come back to you, and that could be synchronized to a religious mindset where you think that there's going to be retribution for your actions and for what you do in this world. And sure, sometimes there will be retribution, but not in the terms of that you think that there's some hidden cosmic force that's going to get back at you for what, right? As if it cares about you like that. So if you subscribe to yourself as a higher power, then why are you being subject to these type of laws, right? People will say all day, oh, I'm a god, oh, I'm a goddess, but I can't eat this, I can't eat that, I can't do this, I can't do that, I have to wear this, I have to wear that. If you read the book called The Gnostics by Jacques Lecarrier. And shout out to Brother Panic for this, because he mentions it a lot, and he goes very deep into Gnosticism, right? But in this book, it talks about how doing all these physical things where you feel like you're changing your diet or going about your changing your clothes and all that stuff, right? And thinking that that's going to bring you closer to something higher, that can be further from the truth. He describes it as dressing up a corpse, because in this world you're considered dead until you gain knowledge of yourself, gain knowledge of your soul. And every minute that after you gain that type of consciousness, you have to spend towards achieving that higher level and ultimately escaping the matrix or the prison, right? So just something to think about. You have to really consider these things. And I'm not saying you can't do these things, but you have to do these things consciously, and it has to be in alignment with who and what you say you really are, right? None of these spiritual practices mean anything if they're not in alignment with who and what you say you are. So if you say that you're a human and you're bound to do certain things and to eat certain ways, then of course, everything that you're saying aligns with that. But if you're trying to go beyond that level, then you have to make it make sense. All right, it has to be in alignment. And what I'm seeing with a lot of people is that we have a firm understanding that these things look cool, that these things sound cool, and might even be impressive when we talk to other people about them, right? It might even make somebody else think highly of you. When you say, oh, I'm a vegan, or, oh, I only wear dashikis and shit, people will be like, oh, that's very African of you. It's very Oriental of you. Oh, wow, how does it feel, right? Or why'd you choose to do that? And, and it's just a fad at the end of the day for a lot of people. And if you tie it to your spirituality, it ties you down. Right? Just think about that, right? Take this into consideration. You don't have to exactly subscribe to every little thing that I'm telling you, but this is my perspective from what I found out, and I see how it can hold people back, right? Just because when it comes to eating animals, and you do pose a good thing when you say like it limits the suffering, but plants are living too, and when you reach a certain level, every plant talks to you. Every plant has a consciousness. Every plant has a spirit around it, and multiple spirits around it. Trees, vegetables, lettuce, watermelon, bananas, all that stuff, right? So if you can see things on that level, or if you can feel the impressions that they give off on that level the same way that I can, or the same way that somebody else can, then you'll know that all this diet nonsense is honestly fraudulent, right? Or it's misleading. It's not making you any more divine. Dressing a certain way isn't making you any more divine. You should dress the way that you want to dress. Talk the way that you want to talk. If you should want to be the most authentic that you can possibly be, because the most authentic that you can possibly be is the closest that you can get to your higher self. When you were younger, before we got contaminated by fitting in with the crowd, before we got mind controlled by fitting in with the crowd, we marched to the beat of our own drum. We were who we were. Every child has an individual personality, and not everybody's trying to be the same way. So, but that gets locked down over time, especially, depending on whatever walk of life that you come from. And you don't have to be religious to have a religious mindset either, right? You don't, because there's a lot of people who are atheists or agnostic that still have religious mindset. So you have to also take that into consideration as well. So you could have been programmed by this in any kind of way, especially if you live in America, a country that is considered secular, but still has religious motifs in all aspects of life, and especially in the way that you're taught in public schooling. So just because you might not be religious, or you might not think that you have these outward beliefs, doesn't mean that it isn't in your subconscious mind. Just something that we need to take into account and that we need to be consciously aware of. You have to evaluate all parts of yourself. And that starts with being honest and self-reflecting. Self-reflecting, you need to get deep into your subconscious mind and understand your own beliefs, right? Understand how you see yourself, how you see everything that's going on. And so in that book, Letting Go by David R. Hawkins, it talks about just that type of pride that we can take, right? And pride is a lower frequency. It resonates at around 250 hertz. And it's the highest out of all the negative emotions that you can feel. So if you have pride in all these things that you do outwardly, then you'll never be able to rise beyond a certain frequency, right? And we can have all these types of emotions and feelings about who we are and what we do, and be in high frequencies in certain points of our life and extremely low frequencies in other points of our life. So when you understand that, or you come to a certain level of consciousness, you have to look at every little aspect of your life, every little situation in your life, your interactions in your life, and really evaluate where you're coming from and why you're coming from there. Meditate on that, because you never know, the littlest things could be holding you back from transforming, from understanding a higher reality, a higher plane of yourself. So, and another thing, if you get that book, The Magician by Phil Cooper, it also talks about, you outline everything that you think or that you were taught God was, and then you outline everything that you want the ideal God to be. You have to do it 3 times. You have to write it on a sheet of paper. Everything that you thought God was when you were growing up, and everything that you want God to be now. And then watch the difference. Observe the differences of what you thought and what you want. And if you could put anything into a God, it's essentially, the book makes you create yourself and create the reality that you want to live in. And that's essentially what coming into this spiritual shit really means. It's not about dressing a certain way. It's not about doing certain things, but it's mainly about being you and walking in that you, having knowledge of self and walking in that knowledge of self. Because if you don't have that, you don't have anything. And I think it's the Gospel of Thomas, one of the Gnostic texts, but you can read it if you get the Gnostic Bible. But Jesus's disciples ask him, should we go celibate? Should we castrate ourselves? Should we eat a certain way? And he tells them, he's like, and to put it in my own words, but to also like synchronize with what the text exactly said. He says, why would you do anything that you hate? I'm not doing anything that I hate, so don't do that to yourselves. Essentially saying that it's not about that. And Gnosticism's all about knowledge. That's what gnosis means. That's what Gnostic means, those who know. So when you make this path all about knowledge, then you can put your ego in a corner, because your ego is always trying to live out through something that makes you less than your divinity, or in other words, makes you human, keeps you physical. The more physical you are, the harder it is to understand your higher self, because you are dealing with the realms of the lower self. That's something to keep in mind on this journey. And it's going to be there at every turn, right? Because let's say we just attach completely materialistic things. Not saying you can't have these nice things, right? Like money, nice cars, and whatever else you might want. Not saying you can't have these nice things, but if you said that makes you spiritual, or somebody else told you that makes them spiritual, you might feel a certain way based off your programming, because you might think, oh yeah, none of that's spiritual at all. But the thing is, when you focus on yourself, when you focus on your knowledge of yourself, right, and your soul can bring you all those things. You can live a comfortable life. You don't have to live a life of suffering. You don't have to live a life of poverty. When you focus on that, those things come naturally, because you're focusing on what's truly abundant And that's your higher self. What's truly abundant is you. What's truly abundant is what's inside your heart, your creativity. You can start your own trends with your own creativity. You can start your own movements just with your own voice. And sometimes you don't even have to speak, you just have to show up, but show up as you. You know, those are the real trends, those are the real abundance, those are the real riches of this world. You know, and everything else will follow you when you show up as you, authentically. There's nothing wrong with doing or procuring any of these things. In honesty, you deserve all of those things, right? This planet is so abundant that it will reward you the more authentic you are to your true self. But the more you are in sync with this planet, rather than being in sync with your true nature, then that's when you begin to have problems, because now you're no longer being authentic. You're no longer being true to yourself. So understand where you're at, understand who you are, and make the separation, right? This is what they call bridging the gap, or closing the gap, actually. You need to close the gap between your physical self and your spiritual self, and put your entire focus on your spiritual self. And that will guide you to what you need to do. That will guide you to who you need to be. And in all honesty, if you just stop putting on this mask and you stop putting on this show for people, you stop doing what you feel like, oh yeah, this is just what these type of people do. You get out of that group mindset, mind control 101, right? But you get out of that group mindset, that group think mindset, and all these things that you see online or that you see famous people doing, you get out of that mindset and you just do what's you, then I guarantee you will find that spiritual light. I guarantee you. So, and I hope this frees some of your minds, right? I hope this really allows a lot of people to understand and see things in a brighter light than they did before, so you don't feel so restricted. You know what I mean? Life should never be restrictive. Life should be freeing. You know, spirituality should never feel restrictive. It should feel freeing. And your choices should never be restrictive. They should be freeing. They should be creating more opportunities for you. You know, and that's real talk. So I hope this helped you. If you got any questions, just ask them in the comments. I'm gonna leave the link to all the books that I mentioned so that you can all read for yourself and get your own interpretation, because that's what really matters. That's what the point of this video is about. To live life on your own terms, to live life on your own interpretation, and to find the true you in all that, and to walk in that true you. So with that being said, peace.